Hello, everyone. This is Brian with episode 2 of my SatAM review of their episodes. Now, last time when I first started, I did the pilot Heads or Tails, and now I'm going to continue on with another episode, which, believe it or not, came out was actually the very first episode that premiered on the original airing of SatAM on ABC, and that is Supersonic. Now, Supersonic, like I said, was the very first one to air on ABC, which you would consider is kind of a little weird, seeing as though Heads or Tails is the pilot and it was shown last. But anyway, Supersonic was the first episode not only to be aired on Saturday mornings for the show, but was also the first episode, or perhaps was the only episode of Sonic to be previewed the night before on the Saturday morning previews on TGIF. Now, as far as the episode goes, I thought it was to me, I thought it was a pretty good episode, to really start off and give you an idea of what the show was going to be like. Because, had I known about Heads or Tails being the pilot, then, that would have been a different story. But this one really gave you an idea of how dark the atmosphere was, how, dramatic at times things were going to be, how adventurous, basically how the overall atmosphere of the show was going to be like. And the storyline and the plot the plot is basically the storyline plot is it goes like this. Nicole is basically malfunctioning, so Sally needs to go get a certain computer chip to put into Nicole as a replacement. So she, along with Sonic, goes into Robottropolis, and while Sonic is distracting the SWAT bots, Sally goes into this factory where the computer chip is made, grabs one, but just as she grabs one, she's caught by one of the robots there. And the robot sounds off the alarm, causes Sally to run out of the factory, and as she's being chased now by the SWAT bots, she runs almost into what is known as the Forbidden Zone. I don't know if she does run into it or not. I have to watch the episode again, but she runs into it, runs towards it, and she runs into the Guardian of the Forbidden Zone. Now, the Guardian is actually the keeper of Lazar's slumber chamber. Now, Lazar is sort of like a wizard or a sorcerer of magic. And his main magical power, is this kind of computerized crystal. Now, what does this computerized crystal do? Well, I'll tell you in a second. In just a little bit. But anyway, after Sally gets out of the Forbidden Zone and meets back up with Sonic, they go back to Knothole. Now, Robotnik obviously notices Sally running into the Forbidden Zone. Has Snively look it up. I believe this is what happened. Has Snively look it up, find out about who sleeps there, and thus Robotnik himself goes into the Forbidden Zone, convinces the Guardian there that him and his master, Lazar, are kind of like on the same level and kind of understanding. Thus, this allows Robotnik to gain access to Lazar's computer, his crystal computer. Now, what does this thing do? Well, this thing is full of magic. Believe it or not, it's full of magic. And Robotnik can use it to do anything he wants. So what is the first thing Robotnik does? Well, of course, he uses the teleportation spell to teleport Sally unsuspectedly and surprisingly to his headquarters. In which kind of catches Sally off guard, and she's wondering how he did this, and he says, "Hey, it's magic," which kind of which tells Sally right there, as she confronts Robotnik about the fact that he has found the crystal computer. Now, not wanting to keep a princess, lonely or without company, Robotnik has the crystal, the computer crystal, teleport Bunny, or as he calls her, Sally's lady in waiting, Bunny Rabbit, into his headquarters. Now, Bunny, just like Sally, is a little caught off guard, surprised, and by seeing what's going on, attacks the SWAT bots, tries to free Sally, but as she does so, one of the SWAT bots stuns her with a laser. Now, Sonic obviously wants to know what's going on, goes around to Lazar's chamber, or into the Forbidden Zone, is captured by the Guardian and now awakened Lazard. Sonic tries to convince Lazard that, hey, I'm not the one that stole your crystal. Robotnik's the one that stole your crystal. But Lazar's, basically being a little reluctant of believing Sonic, basically tells him, okay, I'm going to give you an opportunity to prove your innocence, but you're going to do it without your power. In other words, he's saying, if I can't have my power with me, you can't have your power to help prove your innocence. So he takes away Sonic's speed. And Sonic, for once in his life, has to use his brains to figure out what's going on. Now, while this is happening, Robotnik uses another spell out of the computerized crystal to place a mind control on Bunny and Sally. Now, as he does this, after this happens, and Sonic is basically trying to weave his way into Robotropolis and into Robotnik's headquarters to get his friends and prove his innocence, Robotnik uses the teleporting spell to teleport Sonic into his headquarters. Now, this is the second time he tries, because the first time he tries, he can't get Sonic because Sonic, has his speed. But now that Sonic doesn't have his speed, Robotnik takes advantage of that. And he teleports him right into the chamber and has his mind-controlled slaves of Bunny and Sally basically grab Sonic and drag him to the roboticizer after he tells Sonic that he's made those two obedient. Now Sonic basically sees the crystal, sees the crystal is sort of in range for him to grab, basically has to break himself free of his friends, apologizes to them for every time he has to get by them and get to the crystal. And by the time he finally does reach the crystal, he tries to figure out, okay, how do I use this? How do I use this? And because his friends are still under Robotnik's control, so he said, how do I use this to free them and get me out of this situation? And then he remembers the belt thing that Lazar had and looks at the crystal and realizes it has similarities and figures, well, wait a minute, if this button here on this crystal hypnotized them, maybe it will reverse it. So what he does is he gets out of, basically has to force his way through his friends again, apologizes once more, and then just as he's in clear range, and after almost losing the crystal back to Robotnik and regaining it, and as soon as he's in clear range, Sonic, basically frees his friends by pressing that same button again and basically frees them of the mind control. And explains it and tells them that he's going to explain later of what's going on. And so afterwards, Sonic, along with his friends and with Bunny leading the way, after she says, "Hey, let's get the hip hop out of here," they basically return the crystal to Lazar. And Lazar says that, and in exchange, Lazar gives Sonic back his speed. And Lazar explains to them after they suggest, if it's so evil and so powerful, why don't you just destroy it? Lazar said, I can't do that because it would release the evil. So what happens is that after, like I say, he gives Sonic back his speed. He goes into his chamber. The chamber shrinks, and basically he also teleports Sonic and Sally and Bunny back home to Knothole. Just in time for Rhoda to display what they had been working on throughout the episode, and that's just a light, basically a light switch to turn on some light around the meeting area. But overall, this episode was pretty good. I mean, I'm not going to say it wasn't. In fact, I've said this before. I think previously before I've said this, that somewhere, I don't know why I said it, but this episode really made me think. When you watched what happened to Bunny and Sally, I thought for right then and there that they were going to remain evil for the rest of the first season. Fortunately, that didn't happen. But overall, it was definitely a good episode, a good way to give you an idea of what the show was going to be like, and if I have to give it, a star rating, I got to give it 10 stars because, like I said, it really drew me in, and it made me think. Like I said, with Sally and Bunny in the situation they were in, that they were going to remain evil. It made me think that. Fortunately, that did not happen, and it kind of showed Sonic in a different light. That he now realizes there are going to be times that he's got to use his brain and not his speed. But overall, Super Sonic was a very good episode, introduction episode, not the pilot though, to the series. And that's all I have to say. And if you got any comments, just leave them on my page, and I'll talk to y'all later. Peace out.